Hello, everyone in the internet world. It's us again. Me, Wayne, the CEO of Starfleet USS Southern Cross, the Melbourne chapter, and my lovely colleague,
Sean O'Keefe from Trekkie Fan Fiction.com.
I just like the delay there, and my lovely, I was going to do my lovely barrel girl, but I thought that might be very badly taken. Okay. So what are we going to try and do here? You've seen us do the long ones where we just chat and talk and go on forever. I've come up with a possibility here that we're going to try and do a particular episode in 30 minutes. Now, I've got my learned colleague is already doesn't believe that we can do this. I honestly don't believe we can do this either, but I want to see how far we go over. I've got a countdown timer, which I will start in a minute. All this doesn't count, so don't worry, everybody. And it's set for 30 minutes, and we'll see how long over. I'm hoping we're not going to be like 2.5 hours over on a single episode, but you never know. Now, the episode my learned colleague has picked, which I actually had forgotten the episode till I rewatched it over the last few weeks, is the TOS Way to Eden. Now, this is, I would have to consider, as I said to Sean, if you didn't know the TOS came from the 60s, watch this episode and there's no way you can miscalculate that this is a 60s television.
Totally a sign of the times, that's for sure.
It is. All right, so basically I'm going to start the clock and this is going to end up in a complete debacle. Hang on, wait a minute. All right, the clock's going. So I will start it. See, Shane. Oh,
Sean.
I'm going to take 2 seconds out of this, people. I do this because I have a lot of friends from Sean to Shane to everything, and I get them all mixed up. All right. That's my fault. My learned colleague, seeing he picked the episode, I'm going to let him start it. So you, by all means.
So we're talking about The Way to Eden. I picked it because it was, I love Star Trek. Let's start off. I didn't start TrekkieFanFiction.com because I hate Star Trek. I just thought we'd start off by picking probably, and seriously, it probably is one of the least covered episodes of Star Trek, simply because anybody who covers it would probably lambast it probably as much as we probably will be in this covering. But seriously, mind you, looking at the episode, I must admit, there are some things that are relevant in it. Take, for instance, their call to a simpler life. That resonated with me. The characters, they're getting around going, we reach, and
which we do today.
Really,
we do it.
Yeah, we do the heart-shaped thing and what have you. And I think that's kind of cute. The whole heart-shaped thing. That's kind
I'm
of
not certain what the upside down.
it is. But a lot of it, of course, it was grossly 60s and what have you. Mind you, seriously, in my lighter moments, I think, what did the writers do before they sat down and wrote it? Hey, man, I'm going to write a story for Star Trek, man. And, I listened to some Hendrix last night, man. I got some great ideas for tunes. And seriously, they were tripping. But as I said, there were some great things. As I said, the call to a simple life. I can understand that. I own a property out in the country that I love to go to, where it's quiet and I can't hear the highway. I step out the door and I just hear the birds chirping, what have you. And it's gorgeous. In the city, you step out the door, you hear traffic. You can't go anywhere, do anything without being surrounded by plastic and electronics, and
there is always an electrical hum. They played on that as well.
Yeah,
but there is always an electrical hum in today's world. I mean, no one. I don't think anyone can dispute that. I mean,
And with COVID as well,
I know. Yep.
So many buildings you're in these days, you look over in the corner and there's a filter machine going, and you think, I'm breathing in filtered air, like the guys in the Enterprise or what have you, and I can relate to that.
The odd thing is, Dr. Severin, who is the main character or is the centerpiece around the whole thing, he has a disease that has been created by the technology. There are people who do have reactions.
20th century syndrome?
Sorry?
Well, there are people out there who have 20th century syndrome.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the name of it, but I will go with that. Oh, it's probably 21st century syndrome now because we're getting worse and worse.
Yeah, well,
but there is an actual, there is a syndrome and a medical condition.
That's true.
So like normal, Star Trek is playing on reality. Now, I don't know if they had that back then because there wasn't a lot of huge, I mean, television was coming in. So there was probably this, you know, the airwaves are getting me and all of this. So that episode, as always, was playing on real topics. We may not have seen the real topics at the time, but they were playing on it.
Yes.
I do look. I would have to agree with you that it is not one of my would be go-to episodes. Honestly, when you said it, I'm thinking I can't even remember the damn episode. I honestly couldn't. I know
we tend to think of the great ones like the Doomsday Machine,
or the Balance of Terror, or
exactly. The classics. They're full of action and suspense and what have you. And you think the Way to Eden is like.
Yeah, I got to admit, I had to look it up.
What was that about? Yeah,
and read the synopsis.
I was looking at the start of it and I'm thinking, hey, I recognize that ship.
I know.
That's Harry Mudd's starship. And,
I know.
They just added some windows to the side of it and whatever.
As soon as I was watching it and that came up, I go, oh.
Yeah, that's just Harry Mudd's starship. And they put some windows on the side of it. And I thought, well, that's kind of cute. But yeah.
I like the ship. Of course. The first thing that I have to pick on in the episode, we can't go doing something like this without picking on it, is they can't hold back an old like an ocean liner with a massive starship. They can't tractor it back because the ship's pulling away. And in order to pull it back, they have to put emergency power in. And the moment they do that, all the lights dim. I'm thinking, really? Their batteries are that pathetic that they have to. Their lights dim by quick, go up to level 4. No, we can't do it, Captain. My lights will dim. I mean,
well, mind you, that's dumb. That is dumb. And mind you, the ship did explode before Scotty managed to transport the guys, which I found a little peculiar. The timing I just thought was a little off at the end there. I mean, it went boom. And then, Scotty, have you transported them? And I'm thinking, I hope he's really because I just thought the timing was a bit off there. I'm thinking, did he actually have them transported at that stage? Because I didn't think he had. And then magically, of course, they're all there. But I mean, seriously, these guys, I mean, the way they behaved, I mean, I've never seen such a childish group of people before in my life. I mean, Herbert. Seriously. I've met greenies before. I've met people I'd consider even hippies before, and I've known some people who seriously greenies before. I've met people who are very much into the earth and what have you, and anti-establishment and what have you. I've never met people who behave so childishly before. That was unbelievable.
I think what they were trying, look, from my perspective, this is what I took out of it. I could be right off the beaten track here, but what I took out of it was that Dr. Severin had controlled them. They kind of laid that, as far as I can see, with how they took the ship over, the playing of the music, the harmonics through they hypnotized everybody and all that. I'm kind of I'm stretching it a bit here, but I'm kind of going that Dr. Severin is like any kind of cult figure. He manipulated them into doing whatever he wanted. He was very specific about the people he picked.
Yeah, well, I can understand that. And he did pick a bunch of geniuses. I mean, after all, he did pick Irina, who was a former Starfleet Academy. Well, she didn't graduate,
No,
but at
she
least
was an
he would have
engineer.
known something about starships. And he did have a collection of people there who did know stuff. So they did have some knowledge about how to operate a starship. But there were some things in the episode that I just found beyond the pale. Now, mind you, this was one episode that suffered greatly from the fact of the remastering. I mean, it was definitely made for a little TV screen, because when you blow it up onto a dirty great big screen like the one I've got in my lounge room, you can clearly see that the ball caps were not that good.
Screen.
I mean, the ball caps were stretching at the back, and it's like, and the wigs were not doing it. And you could see the gum marks around their head, the hairlines on the wigs, and it's like, oh wow, this is really.
It could be that you're watching it too closely, but we're not going to go down that road.
Well, no. It's not that I watch things too closely. I'm just stickler for details.
Okay.
I noticed little things. For instance, so one thing I noticed. Did you look into the background of the characters? For instance, the young lady who played Irina. She may not have acted a whole lot, but she came back to play a character in Star Trek New Voyages. And the fan series. Star Trek she played a different character. She played a character as an ambassador, but in an episode that Walter Koenig guest starred in, called "All My Days," to serve all my days, and it was really cool to see her return. Naturally she was a bit older in the episode, but it was really cool of it to see her return.
I remember watching it, but I don't remember picking her out. But then I wasn't really.
Well, she certainly wasn't doing a Russian accent.
That might have been why I didn't pick her. I kind of go on things that I remember from the old TV shows.
Yeah.
Look, I think also you may be right that it suffered from being remastered. I kind of agree with that. All right. Yeah. I mean, some of the older episodes, even into TOS Next Gen, they were never designed to be digitally remastered because that wasn't even thought of. Right. Well, I think also it suffered badly because it was episode 20 in season 3.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to come up with. Yeah, they were trying to come up with episodes. Now,
scraping the bottom of the barrel, you mean?
No, well, I don't want to say that. I'm kind of always believe that Star Trek, even when it's in a bit of a decline, still go for the and I know I'm going to get harassed for saying the word decline with Star Trek. I can see that coming a mile away.
Well, season 3, it wasn't its best.
No, it wasn't. But I still think if you looked into the historical component of the world at that time, what was going on in that episode would have been tagged to something that was going on around the
naturally. It usually did reflect something that was going on at the time.
Now, it might be in a really obscured piece of history, but I still reckon. I mean, if you look at the late 60s, a lot of the cults were coming out of the 60s around that period. So here we do. I mean, you can't avoid it. That was a cult.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was
the guy was totally in total denial. I mean, he's got a disease, and the first thing he does is he absolutely denies he actually's got one. It's like, seriously? And you reminded me of Jonestown. Here's a bloke who's absolutely drinking the Kool-Aid. In total denial. He doesn't care who he kills. He thinks that he can go to a planet, carrying a disease he knows it won't kill him, but is contagious and will kill anybody he comes into contact with, and yet somehow magically believes that the people he goes to will somehow cure him, even though he has the medical expertise to know that that's not possible. So he's, as I said, he's definitely been drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, what planet is this guy on?
I'm a bit.
None of Spock thought he was insane.
Well, I mean, most of the Federation thought he was insane, to be honestly truthful about it. But I'm a bit, let's get to the point where they got to the planet. Now, I have two major problems here. I have massively two major problems. One is, here we got a planet that is got no life forms. It's basically toxic to everybody. In fact, I got three, but I'll go.
No animal life forms.
No animal life. Sorry, I will stand corrected. No animal life forms. Right? Everything's toxic. That, to me, that doesn't biologically, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because every plant's got a defense mechanism. It's just going. You can't.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be based on the same chemistry as everything else in the universe. And you're assuming that it's necessarily based on the same carbon system that we're necessarily based on. Don't make that mistake.
No, I'm not.
If IDIC is true, and we've seen around smokers on the bottom of the ocean that we've got life forms at the bottom of the ocean that live in incredibly toxic environments. Then it's surely an environment like that. The plants, to them, their chemistry is totally natural to them, and just because they're acidic compared to us is not their problem.
No, I'm thinking if they were going to go that road, then they shouldn't have made all the plants look like plants on Earth. They should have. Yeah, well, they should have tried.
Perhaps, just because they're pretty, mind you, you know as well as I do, the whole prettiness of the whole thing was just a shaggy dog. The entire end of the movie was the episode was a shaggy dog.
With a horn stuck to their head.
The whole thing about it was just to set up that image of Adam lying on the ground with the apple in his hand, because once again, Adam has fallen in Eden because of.
I know they were trying to make that huge reference. Like,
it was a gigantic shaggy dog. I mean, seriously, that is the cheesiest the thing I've ever seen. It's like,
okay, my number two problem, right? Now, they've all said, Dr. McCoy said, the food's toxic, the fruit is poisonous, even the grass is acid. So we've gone into the shuttle, they've opened the door, all their feet have burned. And what's the first thing the crew does? They pull them out and put them on the ground.
Yeah, but the soil doesn't necessarily have to be toxic.
Yeah, but Dr. McCoy said
why is the air breathable?
Well, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. Yeah, and see, that's the problem. And
McCoy said,
right. If the soil isn't toxic, why isn't the air? And your argument holds weight in that regard, because if the plants are toxic, then the soil should be toxic, the air should be toxic, the entire environment should be toxic. But mind you, mate, you go back one step further. See, one of my problems in the first place with the entire thinking of this story was when Spock said, I'm going to go find Eden. With what parameters? I'm going to find what parameters?
It's all mythology. It's all
based on what? Yeah, based on what? It's like Cybok in Star Trek V saying, I've found Shaka-Ree. With what parameters have you found Shaka-Ree? Based on what? He got his idea that Shaka-Ree was at the center of the galaxy based on a vision that was of his own imagining. But on what parameters have we found Eden? Spock, in his, he found it based on what?
I know.
Seriously,
Cybok found it over an
Because
entire
it's
life.
pretty.
Well, no, hang on. No, wait. Cybok found it over his entire life. So however long Cybok lived, so let's say 100 years at that point before he found his planet. Let's just go with 100 years. So he's taken 100. Here in this episode, they find Eden in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, which is nuts.
So they've had mythology of this planet, and here's number 4A problem. It happens to be, why is every planet that is of some massive significance in Romulan space, the Iconian homeworld, Eden? All of these planets are in.
They have all the cool stuff, don't they?
I know. Why? I mean, what's going on? Why did they get all the cool stuff and the Federation got nothing?
Mind you, I mean, seriously, if it should have occurred to Kirk and crew that if we're in orbit of Eden and the Romulans aren't here, surely that would have been a red flag.
This is 4B, right? Now, they've crossed the neutral zone. Now, they've done this in other Star Treks. They've crossed the neutral zone. They've gone however long into Romulan space. They've got to a planet. They've beamed down. We're the Romulans.
Yeah. I mean, if Eden is so cool and this place is so awesome and we're in Romulan space, why are the Romulans here? Because, you know, if this place is so cool and the Romulans aren't here, perhaps they know something we don't.
Yeah, but even if that doesn't, even if we shove that one out the airlock, we've got a Starfleet vessel that's crossed the neutral zone. Yeah. Where are the ships to come and say, well, that you're ours now?
And usually the Romulans are on them like, like, oh, wow. Gee, don't you hate it when those euphemisms just... But yeah, usually the Romulans are on them like that. And it's like, seriously, wow.
I know.
They must have all gone on holiday or something.
They were there for I don't know how long.
They've all gone to Riza today.
Do you know the other thing that you can just see a Romulan going to Riza? No.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really get annoyed with the TOS, now they do this all the time, nearly all the episodes. Not all, I will admit, but nearly all of them. Right. Here's a group of people that have threatened Kirk, his crew, the Federation, the galaxy, because they could have started a war. They could have infected the entire galaxy. They've injured crew members. They've done all that. And at the end, everyone's hunky-dory and happy and everybody's, I mean, really? No one is held accountable for, this is the one thing in the TOS I always found troublesome, is that at the end of it, everyone is patting and loving and hugging, and there's never any consequences of anybody's actions.
Yeah. And the only reason there's the only person who should have gotten off at all was perhaps the ambassador's son, but everybody else should have been thrown in the brig and left there to rot.
Yeah, and the only reason for the ambassador was because of diplomatic necessity. That would have been the only reason. Now, realistically, they should have all been thrown in the brig or confined to quarters.
Absolutely. So I mean, it's the happy ending thing was just beyond.
I don't understand. They do that a lot in the TOS.
Yeah, it's a little too forgiving. I'm sorry. I mean, you've hijacked a starship and dragged it into the Romulan neutral zone and way beyond, perhaps causing, perhaps even.
We've got 8 minutes left.
Interstellar war. Yeah,
8 minutes left.
Yeah, we're risking an interstellar war, and it's like they're there.
They don't even get that. They get, have a lovely moon on us. We'll even give you another ship, a new planet. And I'm thinking, what the?
Well, mind you, there was one, I did note there was one good thing that came out of this thing, and it was nice to see that Chekhov got some action. You know, there was a love interest for Chekhov, you know, one of the minor characters. And this is something we don't see I'm not even sure I've ever seen happen in Discovery. And there's, you know, one of the bridge crew guys got a love interest. You know, Irina, you know, a woman from his past came in, and there was this pull between the two of them. And there was a moment where they kissed and what have you. And I'm thinking, this is marvelous. This is the sort of thing that I'd like to see more of in modern Trek, where we see the instead of seeing just the captain or the first officer or what have you, they're being the focus all the time. Let's see the other guys getting some interest. Yeah,
I like the fact that the Chekhov character was given a sort of a set, not the centerpiece, but a centerpiece in the episode.
Absolutely.
Which was pretty amazing considering 1969. I mean, this came out, when would it come out? It came out in February of 1969.
Mm-hmm.
So we've still got the Cold War going on.
Yeah.
There's the space race going on.
Mm-hmm.
And here we've got two Russians actually. We've got
two Russians
playing main characters on an American TV show. I mean, you've got to give them, they were pretty gutsy to pull that kind of routine.
That's true. And still to keep going with the positive future thing there. I love that. That's one thing I love about it. I mean, they may have been smoking pot writing this story, but at least they had the guts to put two Russians in the foreground and show that there's still a positive future for Russians, and having peaceful, mainstream, lifestyles in with everybody else. I love that.
Do you know, and I did do a bit of research on the episode, not probably anywhere near as deep as yours, but I did do a little bit. Charles Napier, who played Adam,
Mr. Badass Charles Napier. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do with
I can't imagine him without a gun in his hand. Yeah.
Or a cigar, he's always got a cigar somewhere.
Yeah. Don't ask me, boy.
Those will remember him playing, if you don't, here's a bit of a Trek piece. He played the general in the DS9 Little Green Men. He was the general in that. And I got to admit, when I found out that the two of them were the same, it freaked me out. But hey, a lot of things freaked me out. But
talk about two entirely different characters.
I know. It must have been really at the beginning of his career there.
He must have busted,
But Charles Napier actually wrote and sung those two songs that were.
Oh, wouldn't surprise me. He's actually got a fairly good singing voice.
I checked up on it. He wrote the two songs and he actually sung them. So that was actually
you can definitely tell it was his singing voice. He's got an excellent singing voice.
I didn't know that part.
Whatever that thing he was playing certainly was a musical instrument.
I don't know what that was. I don't know. But he made it look like he was seriously playing it. If you watch the episode very closely there, he was looking at like he was really playing it.
And he was keeping time with the music too. Not
too certain he was comfortable in those long boots, but you just get given anything out of wardrobe. They probably thought we need boots. This is all we've got. I'll give them to him. I'm not certain what he was doing with those boots because I kind of look at myself and I'm thinking, apart from the fact I couldn't get them on my legs, they wouldn't stay up on me, and I really don't have the legs for those kind of boots.
No, I definitely don't.
But
oh dear, I just think if I ever hear the word Herbert ever again in life, mind you, I kind of like Herbert because Herbert is H.G. Wells' first name. Herbert George Wells.
Well,
maybe that's why he shortened his name to H.G. Wells, because he was one day looking forward to the way to Eden and thought, no. I'm disavowing that, and I'm just going to shorten my name to H.G. Wells.
Look, I think the situation with, they were trying to find a way to have a dig at society, and I mean, if you get technical, because I looked this up because I was very confused with this. Hang on, see if I can find it now. I thought maybe I didn't. Maybe I got rid of it. Oh no, I got it. Hang on. Disaffection.
Yes.
Now Spock uses that and says it's against the law, and I'm thinking that sounds like a made-up name. So I looked it up, but it isn't actually. It's a state of feeling or being disaffected, especially with people in authority or systems of control. Now, I thought about that for a split second, in the 60s, I could see that being an illegal concept to have. So they would have transposed that into Star Trek, having that as an illegal concept as well.
Disaffection doesn't have to be just a 60s thing. There's a
Oh
lot
no,
of
no, no, no,
disaffection.
no. But
Don't get me
remember,
wrong.
we're playing inside the 60s at the moment. So
Disaffection is just as real today as it was then.
but I think it was the meaning that Spock was using was probably more intuitive to what the 60s was going on about. It was, the Woodstock, the uprising, the peace movement. This all wasn't accepted, and it was legally
all that anti-disestablishmentarianism going on.
And it was the law would come down on you, and I think it is interesting that Roddenberry put that into Star Trek not because of the fact that he's trying to connect the modern, like the future with the 1960s, what was going on socially then, but I would have thought by the time the 23rd century came along, those kind of mentalities, those kind of concepts would have been completely gone. But the interesting thing is that they're still saying that kind of, you can't challenge the established order. And I'm thinking, but that goes against everything Star Trek stood for.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that they put that in there.
Yeah.
And it goes against the very foundation. I believe it goes against the very foundations of Star Trek. Because if you have that, then it's not an enlightened society. Because the whole concept of enlightened societies, you're meant to be able to, and no, I'm not trying to be an anarchist here, but if you take it from a point of view that an enlightened society would have that gone. They would be able, it would be a fundamental thing to challenge everything.
Yeah.
You would have to.
That's the entire idea behind IDIC.
Oops, we've just gone over 30 minutes.
But that's the entire idea behind IDIC, isn't it? Infinite in diversity in infinite combinations.
Yeah. So
as long as we get along and agree on certain basic tenets, we should be able to be free to live within our certain spheres. It's one of the things that the Klingons got wrong at the very start of Star Trek Discovery, and that was when what's his name was carrying on like a pork chop and trying to start a war. He absolutely he refused to believe that Starfleet was honest when they said, "We come in peace." He absolutely refused to believe it, and refused to believe that the Federation would leave them alone. And when the Admiral told, I've forgotten her name, but when the Admiral told, what's her name? She went on to become the leader of the Klingon Empire. I've forgotten her name.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But you know,
I haven't watched them enough to get all the names into my head yet.
But anyhow, when the Admiral, she told her and looked her in the eye and said the man was an idiot, and that he was a fool, and that is precisely what they do, and it is that we would have left you alone. We will just leave you. That's your space. You do with it what you do. As long as you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. That's the way we do things. I mean, and that's the way I always, when I'm writing, or when I'm writing Trek, when I write about a colony, the colony has their ways of doing things, and the Federation leaves them alone to do things their way, as long as they're looking after basic human rights. Is not a problem.
Yeah.
On Tarsus 4, the problem was, of course, was when Governor Kodos, of course, decided that to deal with this food shortage problem by wiping out half the population.
But
That's when he stepped over the line.
the underlining thing I see is that Star Trek or the Federation and Starfleet and Earth and the whole bit couldn't get to where they were unless they were willing to challenge everything. So you had to challenge the known concepts. I mean, in order to travel at warp speed, you have to challenge the known concepts of physics or you can't think beyond it, right?
Well,
so for Star Trek to still
relativistic
have
physics, yes.
that kind of concept where you can't challenge the establishment, it kind of doesn't make sense to me. You can't have that and have a society where Star Trek is if you're going to not be able to challenge the establishment, because the establishment can be a lot of things. It can be governments, military, it can be science. So if you can't challenge the science, how do you move forward? That is a really, it gives me a conundrum because I don't understand it. I get why it was there, because they're trying to make out that the 60s was that these kind of people, like these kind of characters, would normally, they wanted to challenge the establishment and everything, but the establishment didn't want it. And that was what was going on in the 60s. But I think putting it into Star Trek at that point was just a mute point. It was just a stupid point. It broke everything that Star Trek was meaning. For me, for that one episode.
I don't know. I think it was. I think they had some interesting things to say, and I think in a lot of ways the story was handled badly. It could have been much better written, especially with their insane idea of trying to find Eden. If they had simply been trying to find a nice planet rather than Eden itself, just a nice habitable world rather than trying to find the Eden, then perhaps it might have been the downside more realistic. You had some, as we pointed out, he had some good points. Severin had a disease that he got because of their sterile society. Their mindset was that they had become 100%. They become 100% tired and unhappy and disaffected. The electronic and totally managed and organized society that
synthetic society. It was
synthetic. I love that word. Very, very good word. Synthetic society that had been totally regimented and they were expected to live in. And I know I wouldn't want to live in that. I tend to live a very messy lifestyle, and that would drive me sheer up the wall. So I can understand. The way they felt.
It's no difference to the people today that go off the grid. I mean, going off the grid is and I know this is going to be a contradiction, but going off the grid is a multi-million-dollar industry now, which I think is funny. I mean, I find it really humorous that they're trying to go off the grid, but yet they have going off the grid conventions where you can go and see how to go off the grid. And I'm thinking, isn't that going against everything?
I suppose there are companies that are profiting from going off the grid, and then they make their money one way or the other. And you've got to go somewhere to get the information. But I see the irony. Yes,
I know it's become kind of like anything. Like anything does, it becomes trendy.
Yes.
Going off the grid, I would see there would be going off the grid for going right off the grid, and then there's the trendy going off the grid, that might do it for a couple of months out of the year and then come back to reality or something. I
think it's nice to be able to get away.
I don't think that's a complete. We're not going to get into that argument because that could kill us.
Mind you, we all just need a holiday. I think that's just what it is. We just need a holiday.
I think these people, the characters, I do have to agree with that they had their internal, their very core and deep concept may have had validation, getting away from everything. But I think the other thing that kind of weirds me out a bit, they were going to go to Eden with nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
You're right. And they were expecting Eden to provide everything that they wanted.
You know, housing, animals. I mean, they go to Eden. They had to have scanned Eden before they beamed down. There's not a single life form. So what were they going to eat and survive on?
Yeah, well, I suppose they're expecting it to be food. Mind you, if it truly was Eden, then they would have noted fairly quickly that it shouldn't have been Eden, because Eden had animal life forms.
Yes.
And that would have been a red flag straight away. You know, I know my Bible. I know that there were plenty of animals there. You know,
Yeah.
yes. So there's something missing right there. So a lot of red flags.
Wouldn't you have thought that the scanners of the Enterprise would have picked up that the planet was toxic? I mean, this goes back
I
to
don't
the
know.
fact that
I mean, why do we have botanists that are always being down and scanning things?
we're going to justify characters by saying, no, we can't see anything, but we can go down kilometers into the planet and find out what the planet, but we can't tell a planet's toxic. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. I can't buy that. I mean, sorry.
I don't know.
I really can't. But it goes back to what you were saying before, and as I said, the soil, the land, everything. If the plants are the only things there, then they're spawning constantly. So then the air should have been toxic as well.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. The chemistry of the planet doesn't make sense.
No. And you shouldn't have been able to. There would have been fumes or toxic residue coming off.
Precisely. That stuff that was flying down the river probably shouldn't have been water.
No, it would have been. Look, I could go with the theory there may have been a percentage of H2O in it. I could go with that.
Yeah.
At some point, the planet went weird and became very toxic. So maybe there was water once before. But
or it's a solution of water plus.
There would have been acid in there. There would have had to
Yeah,
have been
yeah. There's probably a pH of 11.
Yeah,
sorry, a pH of 4. My apologies.
Yeah, because it's always the other way. I always do the same thing.
4.
But yeah, look, it was an interesting episode. I'm not disputing that. I liked Charles Napier. I really do. I thought his character probably made the episode for me. Only because I kind of like the character, like the guy anyway, a little bit as an actor. I know he does a lot of B grades and all that, but he's actually, for me, I think he's quite an interesting actor. But I like the character he does in Little Green Men. That's why I probably like him a lot more.
Oh, there was one thing I wanted to add. Now, it won't take long. But I won't take long.
Oh, we've gone completely wrong.
But if I did have one complaint, and that was that there would be so many lower crewmen who would be up on charges of complete stupidity. The bloke who was outside of Severin's cell should have been up on charges because he was facing the wrong way.
Yep. No, I agree with you.
He should have had his back to the door, facing out, especially when there were 3 different directions somebody could have come at him from. He was looking the wrong way. He should have been he should have been definitely severely reprimanded for what happened there.
You also like the way the brig is set up. There's a red button and then there's a green button. No security code. Just press the green button and the beam drops. That's not to me as a brig.
As well, Kirk erred chronically as well with these young people on board who clearly were, untrustworthy, and knowing that they had designs to go to a place that he didn't want them to go to, he should have posted a guard outside auxiliary control.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. There should be, on a normal basis on a ship, if you look at any naval vessel, there are places where there are guards always posted on a naval ship. And these places are a no-go zone. You come within X distance, you don't have the authority to be there.
Yeah.
The guard has the authorization
At
to
the
basically do
very
whatever he has
least,
to.
At the very least, there should have been a lock on that door, and yet they just waltzed right in. So it makes no sense that.
But you
they
can't have an
tried to-
episode if they can't get control of the ship every second episode.
So yeah, it just makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Nothing.
And what gets me is all of these ships are meant to be encoded with the captain's authority only. But
Mm.
the Enterprise is so easily taken over, but they never learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and mind you, we've gone over that before. How often do they hit that reset button? And
I know
never do the darn
that
thing?
reset button for Star Trek, unfortunately, was very much overused.
Yeah.
Really, I think they got into the habit where they wrote themselves into a corner and they just reset because they just didn't know. And I think that also comes down to why everybody at the end of the show was all happy and peaceful, and it was almost like the beginning of the reset.
Yeah.
And I just think,
Like, let's just pretend it never happened.
yeah, and I just there was
And the Enterprise sails on as if nothing ever happened.
but there was never
Goodbye.
any consequence to anything.
Mm,
Never any consequence to any
No.
action taken. And I
okay.
just,
Sure, there are dead bodies down on Eden, but don't worry about that. It never happened.
it never happened. Well, what did they do with the shuttle? It looked like the shuttle crashed. What were they going to do with the shuttle? They
Well,
couldn't beam it
they'll
off.
just make a Galileo 3. That was Galileo 2.
They'll just drop it in the water and turn it into a coral reef, you know.
I mean, as we know by Star Trek 5, it's Galileo 5, so yeah.
Look, I blame this on you making me watch this episode. I'm just telling you, I'm just blaming it on you. I'm completely and utterly blaming it on you. I'm going to have nightmares now because of that episode. All I'm going to see is little blue lines on people's heads.
We're
And-
rich.
And I'm just going to hear the noise, that damn guitar constantly. Which is just, it's in my
That
head
is
already.
now, man. That is so today.
Yeah, I'm not really certain where the episode was going. I mean, I know
Who's
It
going
just
to eat
seemed-
now?
it was an odd one. I mean, look, if you read a lot of the forums, I'm not going to say any of the forums names, but if you read a lot of the forums, Star Trek, a lot of Star Trek episodes were different. I was trying to be polite there. Very different episodes. I don't really know where I was going with this because it's just I backed myself into a corner. Yeah. Look, you take the original series for what it was.
Yes.
And it was the birth of a legend, and I get that, but I can see why a lot of younger generation. We find this at club conventions and at conventions when we say to the younger generation, "Oh, so which one did you start on?" And I would say 98% of them would come back. So I started on either DS9 or Next
Other
Gen.
younger generations, yeah, that's for sure.
And so, have you ever watched the original series? And believe it or not, I still get this. A handful of people will come back and say, "The original series, what's that?" I actually don't know the original series exists.
Yeah, I know. Some of them have no idea what the TOS is. It's like,
I've stopped saying TOS to people now because
yeah.
they literally don't know what it is. So I say, "Oh,
And
the original series."
some of them have no idea what the animated series is at all.
Oh no, I don't even go into that. They go. I say that, and they say, "Oh, Lower Deck." No, the other one. Oh, Prodigy. No, the
No,
original.
The original animated series.
But
that actually had a holodeck on the Enterprise.
yeah, the first one, but it's never given the credit it's due. I think a lot of people, the original series is an odd series, and it's very hard to get into. All right. Now, I do have a lot of the younger generation that will come up, and they surprise me, and they say, "Oh, yeah, I started it on the original series," and they actually go, "I started on TOS and all of that," and I go, "Oh, oh yeah, I loved it," and I went from then on. Oh, if I hadn't have watched TOS, I wouldn't have. So it's a weird thing, but I remember starting my Star Trek journey on TOS on the very first time they repeated them.
Mm.
So I got to see
Yeah,
them.
I remember watching TOS on Saturday afternoons.
I can't remember I honestly can't remember when I was
When I was a
watching.
kid. I don't remember what channel it was on, but I remember watching it on Saturday afternoons.
But I do know it was repeats, or
Oh yeah, it'd be
for those in America, the reruns, but we call them
Yeah.
repeats over here in Australia.
Mm.
But I remember seeing it, the first repeat version of it, and I fell in love with it then. Maybe
Yeah.
for me because it was the only thing on it was the only Star Trek on on television. Now I give everybody, all the different generations, a bit of a leeway because there is so much Trek on now.
Yeah,
it's
we're inundated with it. Even I have trouble remembering all the episode names.
I don't. I have to. I usually have a split screen up on my computer because literally I can't remember any of them now. But I can understand why people will say, "Oh, I don't know that one because I started here." You know, some people have started on Picard and have never seen anything, and I kind of am curious with that because you start with an episode that has got defined characters and defined lore and defined history, and you fall in love with it, but you have no idea of the characters. That's what Star Trek can do. I think it's a weird thing. It can make you fall in love and not have to worry about all of the other history. You just fall in love with that section, and then you go back later. But I think with a lot of the TOS ones, I think the hardcore Trekkies and the original Trekkies, they love TOS because it's theirs. And I think it's because we only had that on. There was nothing else.
I still remember watching the Doomsday Machine and we're watching the Constellation flying into the Doomsday Machine shakily. Because it was on wires and it was shaking into the Doomsday Machine. But mind you, it still looked pretty cool even on a Saturday afternoon TV show.
I love the Balance of Terror.
It was awesome.
I love that one. I also loved I love the time travel ones where they went back in time and all of that. I love the Guardian of Forever.
I always loved City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, I love that
one. Such a great episode.
That is one of the best episodes I think they ever did. I think that, you know, out of all of them, that's number one out of all of the episodes. I love the episode with, and I can't remember the name, the one with Zephyr Cochrane.
Yeah,
I just can't remember the name.
It was Metamorphosis.
Was it Metamorphosis?
Yeah, it was Metamorphosis.
Well, I love that one because this is the first time you actually properly hear about Cochrane.
Yeah. He doesn't look a heck of a lot like First Contact. I can't believe I've gone blank on his name.
Damn it! I know.
Yeah, James Cromwell.
That's it. That's it.
He doesn't look a whole lot like James Cromwell.
No, but I think he played. I think he played it well for the period that he was in. I mean, realistically, oops, what did I just do then? Realistically, there wasn't a lot of information about Cochrane at that point.
Yes,
and he had to create a character all by himself to a point, probably less than a few lines. You know, this is what Cochrane is. Maybe he didn't even get that. He may have just got Cochrane was the inventor of warp drive. That was it.
That's true. It wasn't much more than that.
So he had to create a character and a whole story about why he disappeared, which nobody really knew anyway up until then anyway. So it wasn't the first time. It was the first time we ever heard about Cochrane and what happened.
That's true.
So I think he did a good job considering what he was given. I wish we'd seen more of Cochrane, to be honest. I really do. And look, they do it in the books, Federation and another one. They bring Cochrane back, the original Cochrane, and
Yeah, we saw a clip of him in Broken Bow in Enterprise.
yeah.
Mm.
And we've done this, we've hashed this out so many times. I think there was a lot of episodes that they should have gone back and done other episodes on because they would have been good. But, you know, when you're given a budget of next probably a couple of $100, let's do an episode every week on a couple of $100. You've got to be picky and choosy, I suppose. So,
Yes, indeed.
look, I think we've killed this episode.
Yep. I think we've put it to
Not
rest.
completely. We have gone. I'm not exactly certain. I clicked the wrong button and my timer has stopped. But we have gone over the 30 minutes. I would say we're about 45. But I will put this up exactly how far we went over.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad, not considering that we normally like do a two and a half hour thing. But we are going to try to do
quite conservative.
We are going to try and do a couple more of these just to destroy episode after episode. We will try not to destroy every episode we love.
Just honest appraisals.
Oh, is that a constructive criticism?
Yes, I like that.
We're giving constructive criticism.
Constructive.
Oh, all right. We just have the advantage of being able to go frame by frame and pick up everything that no one else has ever been able to do. And we just, I don't know. This is what the club does. We get together once a month. We have a meeting and we talk about Star Trek. So this is what we do here. We're just we're condensing. When we do short ones, we're just condensing what we will talk about. In all honesty, Sean was the only one I could get that would come online. Him and I are the only two that really want to come online and basically destroy episodes.
Yes, I don't mind a bit of sacrilege. I'm good with it.
So I think we've done and dusted this episode. We will do another one. Hopefully it will be as interesting. I don't know if this was interesting or what, but I'm hoping that we got some insight into the episode and and everybody has. Look, Star Trek allows everybody to have an opinion, and this is the great thing about Star Trek is that everybody can have an opinion, and you can have disagreements and disopinions about each thing, and this is the other good thing. So again, if you want to leave a message in the comments, please be constructive, not destructive, and be kind to us because, you know, we do this for the love of Star Trek, not to get harassed by everybody. And I'm going to say goodbye, and we will see you guys later. You take care, everyone.
Live long and prosper.
Yes, I love that part. Oh, hang on. No. This is why I'm not allowed to play with